Is Beyond the Dawn expansion worth playing? Yes, this DLC is absolutely worth playing because I can change clothes of my favorite Kisara and make her wear towels and then make her roam around the city and then take photos of her, which is a bad thing to do, but I don't know why I end up doing that. Jokes apart, now let's talk about the real shit. Don't focus on the people who are giving negative reviews on the Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn expansion. I have checked people's review on Steam and a lot of them are disappointed with this game because they are expecting a lot from DLC. And guess what? When you expect a lot, you end up getting disappointed. This guy on Steam is saying that Beyond the Dawn has tedious quests. I don't think so. Apart from 3 or 4 slow and dull quests in the first half of the game that seemed unnecessary, I don't think there are any other boring quests in the game. The game really has a great storyline and most of the quests that are happening are always around the main storyline. And if people want that things should happen very quickly, well, it is not gonna happen as this is not some TikTok shit or Instagram reel. This guy is also saying that if you have a great experience with the base game, then only you are gonna like Beyond the Dawn, but as a standalone game, this game is not good. I've seen a lot of people saying the same thing. Bro, first of all, let me tell you that this game is a DLC and not any separate game of its own. People are behaving as they were expecting some totally newly different game out of this DLC. Yes, Beyond the Dawn didn't provide any new playable character, which is a bit of disappointment for me as well. Yes, they didn't provide something out of the blue in combats. Yes, maybe a lot of enemies are similar as the base game, but the story and its progression is totally new and it feels like a main story and not some useless extension of the story which a lot of other games do. Even in the base game, after a certain period of time, the enemies kind of feel similar only and the combat feels kinds of repetitive. But for me, the combat is really addictive as leveling up, getting upgraded weapons and armors, fighting with different characters and styles and using variety of powers and tactics, and such a big skill tree for each character is already there in Tales of Arise. These great distinct features help me to never get bored, not even in the DLC. The combats already give 6 playable characters and so much options are already provided in the base game that I think it is sufficient for me to enjoy DLC if the story and its progression is great. This guy is also saying that there is no expansion at all except some stretched out dungeons in Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn DLC. I think bro must be really high while playing this DLC. They have provided 3 new dungeons in which a lot of time will be spent exploring and doing combats with variety of enemies plus some good boss and mini boss fights are there. These things made me really feel highly engaged and energetic in the DLC. I also want to add here one more thing, that it has been 2 years since I finished the base game, which has been a long time, so of course Beyond the Dawn will be a kind of fresh game for me, as after so long most of us would somewhat forgot what exactly does it feels like to play Tales of Arise. So let's assume if I had finished the base game recently and played this DLC now, maybe I would have not enjoyed the game so much, but still I can easily say I would have enjoyed it still, because in simple words this DLC is engaging even if not much of new features are added in the game. Overall it's a good game to play at least one time. There is one very bad thing about Beyond the Dawn expansion, and that is its cost. It is fucking $30, which is too high for a DLC, and the base game was $40. I took around 45 hours to complete the base game main story, and for the DLC I took only 15 hours for the main story. That means if we see according to the gameplay time, the cost of Beyond the Dawn should not be more than $15. That's really desperate move from Bandai Namco, which is really bad, and that disappointed me a lot. And because of this, I would say if you are a guy who try to do savings while buying games, you can absolutely wait for the sale on this DLC. Do Beyond the Dawn does good as a DLC, but I would say the costs are too high here, bro. Now I will share my feelings as I progress through the game. When I started this Tales of Arise DLC, it took me around 1 to 2 hours to get used to all the combat system again. I started to get the nostalgia with the characters and combats in the DLC, which gave me a great feeling, but in the first 30% of the Tales of Arise Beyond Dawn, my feelings were a bit mixed. Some parts like story and its progression I really enjoyed, but in some places certain main quests felt more like side quests which were not really necessary, and that made the overall experience a bit off for me while playing Beyond the Dawn. What almost got me engaged for this first 30% was the nostalgia and the anime dialogues and scene that they were showing. I loved how they always do great at showing the small human emotional feelings through their intense dialogues, and after completing the first 30% of Beyond the Dawn, it really comes to pace with its base game, and the DLC really gets interesting because the story takes a drastic turn and things becomes really intense, and this DLC continues to give the same intense vibe till the end. Beyond the Dawn expansion will really give you great surprises time to time after the game gets its pace and will really make you curious about what will happen next. Also, the combats will become more frequent and you will find some new enemies as well, which will create a good energetic vibe in the game. But on the contrary, I will say that don't expect the story to be as great as the base game. Now let's talk about the only main newly added character in the game, which is Nazimil. Nazimil was raised in complete secrecy and was subjected to constant verbal abuse. That's really tough for anyone, especially someone still who is just a child. Beyond the Dawn have greatly shown how the child who has experienced so much abuse can change drastically from other normal people. Even though Nazimil has a lot of feelings on the inside, she acts like she don't care about anything and don't expect help from anyone. The DLC did an amazing job portraying how Nazimil's emotions gradually changed after meeting Alphen and his friends. They were the first people to genuinely kind to her, and it was really cool to see how that made a positive impact on Nazimil, but later on things really got twisted, and that's the best part, which I don't want to tell because that will be a spoiler, bros. Now I would like to talk about another spotlight of Beyond the Dawn, that is the newly added dungeons. I had the best time in the dungeons as their exploration and continuous enemy encounter was on point. I loved how they have given so many directions to go in dungeons so that I can explore more and get lost a bit and found out new items and equipments, which was a good feeling. The third and the last dungeon, which happens at the end of this DLC, is the most biggest dungeon of them all, and I was in this dungeon for more than 2 hours. And then finally the last boss fight happens, and I think the last boss fight is pretty long. It took me around an hour to kill the last boss. Yep, it's that big, bros. And the fighting too was quite intense and great. Hey folks, don't forget to like and hit the subscribe if you really liked the video. Thank you so much for watching.